Hello, welcome back to the Creative Worthy podcast. I am joined today by Sherita Harkness again. So happy to have Sherita back. We have her story in the show notes. If this is your first episode, definitely go check out her story or any of the other incredible women who have shared their stories here on Creative Worthy. Today, we are in between seasons, so we are releasing shorter episodes that are all about creative processing and guiding you through processing a certain intention. Today, we are processing play, which is really exciting because this is Sherita's bread and butter. And I didn't even know that when I met her, but within our first conversation, I was like, oh, did you know that I do creative processing workshops? And the first one, other than processing you, is processing play because it's just so important for adults. So today we're just going to talk about the power of play in our lives as adults. And yeah, Sherita, you want to
Hi.
kick us off with play ideas?
Play ideas. Sure. As I sit here and actually have Play-Doh in front of me. I think you have Play-Doh too, don't you?
I have magnetic beads or
Oh,
like
I have those too.
magnetic balls. They're
I
so
have those too.
satisfying.
They're really awesome as far as like pulling stuff. But I actually have Play-Doh because I've used it in my workshops, and I have a workshop coming up on March 6th with, which is the HR consulting group across the nation. And we're just going to hang out here in Chicago for a conference. And so we'll be using Play-Doh to process 30-day wins from everything that they've talked about that day during the conference. So anyways, I had that. We're playing with that. Yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be exciting.
I think we need to incorporate play into the Heart Soul Strength Conference a little bit more. And by the way, if you're listening, it's going to be common knowledge by now that Sherita is a keynote speaker at the Heart Soul Strength Conference, which we are super excited about. But yeah, as you're talking about that and like conference, like playing to process what you've learned at the conference, like what a great way to seal the deal, to process what you've learned, and to just sink into the gift that play is. I love that.
No, it's really awesome. People always ask, how'd you come about with learning with play? And I actually figured out the secret to play when I was grieving a lot of loss in 2018. And I was watching TBS one night because I couldn't sleep and my brain was everywhere. And the movie Hook came on. And if you are an 80s kid, 90s kid, you should be familiar with that movie. It's with Steven Spielberg. He uses Robin Williams as the character of Peter Panning, who has forgotten that he is Peter Pan and has forgotten how to fly, crow, and play. And so the Lost Boys, ironically, who are not actually lost, but are helping Peter to find himself again. And so they sit down at this table, and I actually watched it the other night, and I didn't realize that before the scene, it's called the Never Feast scene. So if you sit down and watch the movie, it's halfway through the movie. It's right before he realizes who he is. And he's sitting there, he smells food, and he's, oh, it smells so good. So he goes down to the table to sit with the boys. And when he gets down there, there's no food on the table. And the boys are like eating, like they look like they are just eating really good. They have bobos and these drinks and all these things. And he's, what is happening? Where is the food? And Tinkerbell, who is Julia Roberts and looks way too sexy to be Tinkerbell. Just saying, that's the 80s, right? Or 90s. So she's sitting there and she's like, this used to be your favorite game, Peter. You got to play. And he's, play with what? She goes, eat. He's like, eat what? Gandhi had more food than this. And so he's just like losing his mind. And then the kids, one of the boys, his name is Rufio, he says he can't play anymore because he doesn't know how to play. And so they're going back and forth. And ultimately, at the end of the scene, he starts to play, picks up a spoon, throws this pretend whatever at Rufio, and all of a sudden it comes to life and food on his face. And I started crying. Like, I'm just sitting there bawling, like, what is wrong with me? And I wasn't hormonal. I just had this realization that everything I needed that I was thinking I had lost or I had no more access to because of the things I had lost, I actually still had very much ownership of in my life. I just needed to play to have a different perspective to be able to see it. And that scene also in the moment was reminding me of Psalms 23 that says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And you keep going, and it says, and he will prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. A lot of times we think that table is for us and not the enemy, but it's for both of us. And the fact that he was sitting there and there's this abundance on the table for both him and in the moment, the little boy who's teasing him with little yo mama jokes as his enemy, right? And God just was like, you have more when you actually release in your hand what you think you don't have. So play was the way that he got there. Because the little boys he goes, what am I doing? They go, you're doing it, Peter. You're playing with us. You're using your imagination. So I just started applying that concept to what I did, to my work. And I didn't realize I had been doing it all along, even as an educator, when I was teaching, when I was in theater. I just didn't have language for it. And I just started to see that it was opening doors and letting me see things I never saw before. So that is how I came to play and recognize its power to bring into existence possibility.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think that so many adults neglect or maybe even feel guilty about play?
Because
That's something we've gotten
good.
right as an adult.
Yeah. We say that play, we equate as adults play to pleasure or to leisure. So we think when we play, oh God, I'm resting, I need to be doing something. Or when I'm playing, I should be working. But play is work. It's just a different type of work. You talk about it all the time with creative processing, right? It's a totally different type of work. So your brain is two-sided. And the irony is, if your children weren't playing when they were younger, the first thing you do with a baby is to teach them how to play so that they can what? Learn. You want them to play with the little blocks to go inside the little hole because that's going to teach them their shapes. And you want them to play with the leapfrog, at least you did in 1995, so that they could learn their little hooked on phonics work for me, A, B, C, D, delicious, right? So you want all these little things and you want to, until then they get to be about 10. You go, stop playing. Sit down. Be quiet. It's like, what the freak? Make your mind up. I've been playing this whole time. You know, you don't want them to read a certain way because they're reading voices. You don't have time. We don't have time to play anymore. You do. So when you actually remove this idea, false narrative, that play is for leisure and that play is just resting, right? It's just for fun. Play is fun, but fun is a byproduct of the work that you're doing when you play. So it's just shifting mentality again to be able to see what am I actually doing and what is play actually motivating me to do and freeing me from. And it's essentially play is inviting vulnerability in a way that you would never have access to it if someone asked you to be vulnerable. And so it's removing barriers you don't even know are there. And then it's also bracing you and building a foundation of trust within a matter of moments because now you're in a space of imagining and therefore you don't have the same barriers, limits, time, or issues with resource that you would when you're not playing. So you can think better.
One of my very favorite quotes about this is actually from Plato, and it says, you can discover more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. And the science behind that is because play releases dopamine and therefore it reduces stress and it strengthens relationships, which is one thing that I just love about what you do is you've taken this concept and I've taken a general approach to it, right? With creative processing, we're all creative, play is important. This is why it's the very first workshop that I teach when I do creative processing workshops, typically, is because that breaking down those walls as an adult and saying play is not just important, it's actually essential in order for us to move from point A to point B effectively and in a way that feels fulfilling. Like that is a huge learning from the research that I did. And then what you do is you take that concept into organizations and you show them like, hey, maybe there's not a relationship problem or there's not a revenue problem, but there's a relationship problem. Let's unveil that. And when we play, everyone's disarmed. We're all on an equal playing field.
That part. Yep.
Yeah.
And also it gives opportunity for leaders to see their people differently because our people come into our room. If you're a leader, your people come in, they're doing work. They don't want to bother you. They want to get their work done. And we miss like seeing the real person because everybody's coming to do their job. Okay, get in here, get out. get our numbers done, get blah, 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 right? But when you play for a second, you learn things about people, like the quote that you just said, that then goes, wait a minute, I got you over here in IT and you can do X, Y, and Z. You should be over here in this department. Or wait a minute, you were telling stories. I got you sitting behind this darn computer talking about you're an admin. I need you presenting and or I need you out in the field or wherever. So it gives again this perspective and that you would have never had if you hadn't allowed these people to play and you as a leader get an opportunity to see, I actually don't know everything.
Yeah.
I
For
need
sure.
help.
I need help. And other people have strengths that I don't have that can actually
Ma'am.
benefit the impact of the overall company as a whole on a personal level and then also on a revenue level. Like they
Say it again for the
work
people in the
together.
back.
It play helps you make more money. So here's the deal. Most, or not most, but many, and probably most, if we're being real, adults feel like play is just childish and unproductive, which you touched on and talked about. But in reality, play helps us to process emotions, connect with others, and break free from that cycle of overthinking. Sharita, can you think of a time when you've been trapped in a cycle of overthinking and you've gone to your craft closet and grab some Play-Doh or something like that?
Totally. I can tell you, it's actually on my LinkedIn minicast. I started a series just a couple weeks ago and started to put out there, but I was in Seattle at a friend's house and her 9-year-old loves to play with Legos. And I was doing some work for a client and I was totally stuck, right? And I'm helping them to do play, but I was trying to create the activity for them to use to play to get their breakthrough. So she says, while I'm doing this, Shrita, can we play? I was like, girl, I'm working. Sit down. And she came back. She was like, but you're not going to be here long. Can you play? So, long story short, we sit down to play and we're playing with Legos. And I realized as we're playing, I'm not playing right because I wanted to build what was, which I don't, you would like, but is there any right way to play? Yes, it's called use your darn imagination. I was trying to use the box. And she tells me as I'm flustered with her picking up pieces from 15 different Lego sets, I'm losing my mind. She goes, Sharita, what is the problem? I said, we are supposed to be building what is on this box. And she goes, that's not how it works. You're just supposed to use your imagination. I want to sit your tail down and stop talking to me. But she was right. And the minute we sat there, we were just creating stuff. She made up a cell phone holder for a table, which then led me to think about what I was doing for this client. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. It opened up my eyes and I was able to create more. I had to tell her, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, mama, that I just was so busy. And I'm like, for the person who has a whole business built on play, thank you. Thank you so much, Sharina. So, yeah, that's a time.
Yeah, that's definitely, I love that example too, because as a mom, there are often times where I'm like, I can't stop right now because I like, you want me to do my nails or you want to do blah, 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 blah. And it's actually helping me in my work when I
Mhm,
do stop and just, it helps build the relationship with her. It helps her to
mhm,
feel seen and feel heard, but it also just helps me to think more creatively, to engage in my imagination. Just yesterday, Ella gave me, she did my nails and she gave me
mhm.
a whole list of different colors I could choose from. And then she took out masking tape or whatever, the clear tape. And she drew on the tape and then placed it on my nails. And she gave me nice, long, rainbow colored nails. And I was like, at first, I was like, I don't have time to do this right now. But it was so good that we had that moment of just creating together or letting her create with me and me just being like, oh my gosh, these nails are so beautiful, engaging
Mm.
my imagination. Because then I was able to go, they went to a basketball game. So I had some time to work after they had left the house and I was so much more productive.
Mhm.
So much
Because your
more.
brain was free. Your
Yeah.
brain was just freed up and it was like, "Oh, okay. We can go here. We can play here." I'll say this last thing, my mom, she's had several strokes over the last couple years and they always have them in therapy do different exercises for motor skills and fine motor skills and thinking and whatnot. And so Holy Spirit put it on my heart to get her a devotion that she could read but also color. So my dad was asking like, what is that supposed to do? I'm like, Dad, it's proven that when she's using both sides of her brain, maybe one gets tired, she can use the other side that's more creative. It will then refresh that side, like help that other side that needs more logic to be open. And it has helped her a lot with her speech and with processing. And the days that she doesn't do it, I can tell a difference. And the days that she does, it's, oh, there she is. There you are, Peter. It's great. So it
Okay.
definitely helps.
We're going to put that devotional coloring book into the show notes because I need it. And so I'm like, if I'm going to pull the link anyway, well, let's just drop it in the show notes.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And
I'll
then
find it. She has it here. I'll send you a picture.
it also reminds me of the study that I read about how they are bringing kids, like kindergartners, to nursing homes.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
They did it. They're doing it all over, but definitely in Britain and in Switzerland.
Yes. And like, why
Mm-hmm.
are they doing that? Because kids play, they're
Mm-hmm.
playful. They have an
Mm-hmm.
attitude of play, which is something
Mm-hmm.
I think we just need to reclaim as adults. You can have an attitude of play. It doesn't need to
Yep.
just be an activity, it can be an
No.
attitude. Sharita, you do that so well with your storytelling. Like
Mm.
every time I hear you tell a story, and even just like the way Ella was on the phone with you last week and she was telling you a story, but the way that you interact with her imagination, you have
Mm-hmm.
truly adopted play as an attitude. And maybe you have moments like the Lego moment, but we all do.
Right.
We're adults.
Right. And you have to fight. You have to fight for that. I love talking. Like Ella and I had a great conversation because, and I have lots of conversations like that with my friends' kids because they think about things so differently. There's no limits in their mind yet. And so it's easy and they'll come up with something and I'm like, "Oh, wait, I could use that in real life. Like I could do, or like she explained the giants in her story. They came out because it was grouchy time. And I was like, grouchy time. And in a way, I thought, isn't that just wonderful? Because don't we all just have some grouchy darn time? Like, here's the Giants are out today. I started saying it the next day. I was like, the Giants out. You might want to move. It's grouchy time. Like, it's grouchy season, she said too. So, like, even just the way that we talk about things, it would help. It helps to be able to process it in a way that people not only can understand and relate to, but they don't feel offended by, especially in our society where everything is so offensive. It's just like, come on, let it go. Let's process differently. So I think that's why, because it removes fear.
Yeah. So the challenge for today, the creative processing prompt I'm going to challenge you with. If you didn't hear the last episode, this is the only part that I challenge you to write down is the intention. At some point, it will become like muscle memory and you don't necessarily need to write it down. But if you're trying to incorporate some of these, or if you're trying to incorporate creative processing into your life as an everyday, just natural thing, which I don't say this to be prideful, but I will say that now the way that I think is in these creative processing prompts when I need to go and set an intention. But this is how it became that muscle memory is through a prompt. So today the prompt is the purpose of enter however you want to play is to process playing as an adult, playing as a creative, playing as a way that you connect with your kids, playing as a way that you increase the creativity in your team or get to know people better in your team. I think it would be amazing I think I need to schedule a time with Sherita to come join the DDCC team and have us do an activity. So we're going to have to talk about that as well. Because even as an entrepreneur and having a small business, I do have a team. There's a team of
Yeah.
incredible women that I work with on a daily basis. And we're from all over the country. And so I think there would be a whole lot of value to virtually meeting together and playing. And yeah, all of that to say, today's prompt is all about just having you find a moment to play today in one way or another. Set your intention to play. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can dance while you're cooking. You can color with your kids, or you could have a spontaneous game night. There are so many different ways to play. And remember that play is an attitude. It's not an activity. That's the goal. I would love for you, if you are framing this as a creative processing time, for you to just take note of how you feel afterwards. Was it really hard to let go? Did you have a hard time diving into your imagination? I can tell you from personal experience that it was incredibly hard for me to engage with my imagination after pushing it down for 15 years and being like, you have no place here. It was incredibly hard for me to allow myself to just daydream or to just engage even in Barbies and make-believe land with my daughter. That is still to this day, it's a challenge. And that's why I have to set an intention to do it. because even though it's a challenge, freedom is on the
Challenge.
other side of what makes me uncomfortable, right? And so even though it's uncomfortable to pick up and play role play games with my daughter, the freedom on the other side of that, the things that I learn on the other side of that, the ways my brain is able to expand and be more productive and creative and have more clarity, so worth it. Always, 100% of the time. So make sure to join us for the next episode where we are going to be processing relationships. And I just invite you, if you decide to play and you take a picture, tag us on social media. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to any one of us. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. Don't forget, you, my friend, are
Created worthy.
Yes, you are. Thanks for listening and tuning in to the Created Worthy podcast. I hope that today's show resonated with you, and if it did, can you do me a huge favor and go leave a 5-star review? This helps more listeners find the show, and it expands the reach of the stories and concepts that are shared here. All the links and guest information are in the show notes. And if you're on social media, come hang out with me. You can find the Created Worthy podcast on both Instagram and Facebook. Or come follow along with my personal IG page, where I just share more about the real, sometimes messy life of your fellow worthy warrior. Can't wait to talk to you soon, friend. And don't forget, we are all created worthy. That is, hold on. Yep. All right. Make sure to join us for the next episode where we're going to be processing relationship. When we're going, the two of us, any one of us. I feel like I have lots of us inside of me. Anyways, here we are. So yes, awkward endings are my thing.
Just close out. Just say
Okay,
the next
here we
thing.
go. Okay.